I think it's possible to brainwash, manipulate, coerce people to do just about anything.
Healthy religion preserves a person's sense of free will, whereas destructive mind control cults do not want people to think for themselves.
Under the right circumstances, most people can have their views manipulated and altered.
A mente humana, a ferramenta mais poderosa à face da Terra. A sua capacidade para criar ou destruir é ilimitada. A habilidade de controlar ou influenciar a mente humana é poder supremo, o poder de manipular, subjugar e dominar. É a história arrepiante da batalha pelo controle das mentes humanas, uma guerra de ideologias pelo domínio do mundo. A batalha pelo controle mental é realizada usando sexo, espiões e drogas psicadélicas.
White would watch behind two-way mirrors while these prostitutes whom he was working with would slip drugs, including LSD, into the drinks of these people who thought they were just there to have a night of pleasure.
É a história verídica e poderosa de uma conspiração da CIA envolvendo operativos a soldo, encobrimentos burocráticos e psiquiátricos sádicos.
What Cameron was doing was well beyond an experimental treatment. It was in the realm of science fiction.
O projeto conta experiências horripilantes que deixaram centenas de pessoas marcadas para a vida.
I received a total of 109 electroconvulsive shock treatments. I had 86 straight comatose days.
Esta procura incessante por armas psicológicas alastrou-se a todo o mundo, deixando um rastro de mortes misteriosas.
These people were not sentimental about human life, and they certainly believed that everything they were doing was in the interest of maintaining the freedom of the Western world.
No fim, produziu um legado de controle mental que chegaria ao novo milénio.
If you don't take responsibility for what goes into your mind, somebody else will.
The greatest battle of the 21st century will be a battle of the mind.
Controlar as mentes. 26 de março de 1997, Rancho Santa Fe, na Califórnia. A descoberta horrenda de 39 corpos numa mansão de $1 milhão chocou o mundo. Mais chocante ainda é o motivo para o que aconteceu. Através da brilhante manipulação de um homem, 38 pessoas acordaram em tomar fenobarbital e asfixiarem-se de forma a chegarem a uma nave espacial que seguia atrás de um cometa. Foi o maior suicídio em massa em solo americano. Foi também o último exemplo de uma guerra vivida em todo o mundo pelo controle das mentes humanas. Uma guerra moderna pelo controle mental, na qual a manipulação das armas tinha se tornado tão refinada que até o mais são dos indivíduos poderia ser convencido a fazer qualquer coisa. Uma guerra moderna pelo controle mental, cujo desenvolvimento de armas foi registado há quase meio século atrás, na outra metade do mundo. Esta é a história arrepiante de como se iniciou a batalha pela mente humana, com uma série de eventos horríveis que alimentaram a procura de novas armas que seriam usadas numa guerra ideológica cada vez maior.
The Cold War was the battle for human minds, really a deadly struggle for ideological supremacy, for the domination of one ideology over the other.
Os comunistas compreendiam o poder da propaganda como instrumento de controle mental e usaram-no de forma brilhante durante o famoso Grande Expurgo de Stalin.
I think we first started to become aware of mind control as a force that could be used by government for political purposes during the 1930s in what were called the Moscow show trials, when a lot of Stalin's old enemies were put on trial and remarkably confessed to crimes they could not have committed.
Os comunistas filmaram as confissões impostas e mostraram depois a todo o mundo a dureza sem piedade do sistema soviético.
The technique was rather simple. People would be beaten. People would be tortured. People would be denied food. They would break down because they would be duped by their interrogators. They would say, listen, if you confess and if you point to others who may have been involved in anti-state activity, then you have a chance to be pardoned. You will not be shot. And some people would believe it, and they would be imprisoned and shot.
And at that point, the Western countries became alarmed that the Soviets had developed techniques to control the way people think and act.
Uma década mais tarde, logo depois da vitória aliada na Segunda Guerra Mundial, os medos do Ocidente regressaram à medida que o sistema comunista soviético avançava imparável pela Europa de Leste. A propaganda soviética teve o pior inimigo na pessoa improvável de um humilde clérigo húngaro, o cardeal Józef Mindszenty. Opositor fervoroso do comunismo, o cardeal tornar-se-ia uma das primeiras vítimas da batalha pelo controle mental travada durante a Guerra Fria.
He was kidnapped literally out of his cathedral. They took the poor man and subjected him to a rather brutal period in which he was stripped of everything, including his clothes. He was cold and miserable and lonely and sleep-deprived. Then, a relatively short time later, appeared in a court with the foreign journalists all invited and confessed that he had been an American spy and an enemy of the people and so forth.
Quando o cardeal confessou ser espião, todos acreditaram que uma qualquer droga de controle mental tinha sido usada nele.
At the Vatican, the most solemn procedure of the Catholic Church denounces Hungarian communist treatment of Joseph Cardinal Mindszenty. The Sacred College of Cardinals assembles an extraordinary secret consistory to hear the papal indictment of the mock trial of Cardinal Mindszenty.
The Hungarians used the same old Soviet methods, and the Soviets naturally helped them conduct investigation and interrogation. And I simply know the persuasive power of good investigators.
When he began confessing to crimes he could not have committed, the intelligence agencies and the military agencies began to fear that the Soviets were winning what was called the battle for control of men's minds.
O medo gerado pela confissão do cardeal passou a terror 18 meses mais tarde, quando os soviéticos agarraram a oportunidade de testar as suas técnicas de controle mental em americanos pela primeira vez.
The Korean War, which started, if I recall, on June 25th of 1950, provided the Soviets with a unique opportunity to have direct access to the prisoners of war.
We had no heat. Our summer clothing was very light. It froze every night. I simply didn't sleep at night. They would throw open the door without warning and ask me what I was thinking. And if I said I was thinking about home and my wife and my family, they would call those bad thoughts. I think I was becoming a different person. I looked at my arms. I was losing flesh very rapidly. I couldn't remember what my wife looked like. My bride of 7 months. I got to the point where if they told me something the night before, and then the next night they would ask me the same question, then I would give them the answer they told me, thinking that this would be the correct answer, but it was not. And little by little, I realized what they wanted me to do every night. They wanted me to come in and say, okay, what is truth tonight? You tell me what truth is now. In other words, to be re-educated is to look to them for the answers. And they said, why don't you ask us, Larry, we'll tell you. So that's what they wanted me to do.
Muitos dos métodos de persuasão dos norte-coreanos tinham vindo da tradição de controle mental soviética, bem como de táticas chinesas de reforma mental. Alguns dos métodos usados eram subtis, outros não.
Anybody under those circumstances might, like Cardinal Mindszenty or any other normal person, come to confess to something he hadn't done.
Foi exatamente o que aconteceu. A máquina militar americana, bem como as pessoas que seguiam os acontecimentos em casa, ficaram estupefactas quando ouviram os seus soldados admitirem o uso de armas biológicas.
Then the only other instruction I received, of course, was the order to carry out my germ warfare mission.
They didn't use germ warfare. They didn't drop these bombs, but they were making this up. Who knows, perhaps to keep from being tortured at all or tortured more or perhaps even being shot. You had seen enough summary executions that any time they made a threat, you had to take it seriously.